more of like where's the sport going? I know we heard Rob Manfred this weekend. Usually All-Star Weekend is the time where there's a little bit of a state of the sport kind of address, and he did address some of these things that we're going to kick around today. Work stoppage being one of them. Some of the new things that may be coming into baseball. ABS got a lot of attention during the All-Star game. That's one of the possible changes. There's some discussion, although I don't know how serious, about further limiting defensive positioning because they did it with the infield. They took away the shift to a degree, right? I mean, they just limited it. It didn't go away. Shortstops now play like one step to their side of second base to still gain some advantage, but they're thinking about that in the outfield. So we're going to kind of jump around on some of those things later. So if you have thoughts on any of them, if you have thoughts on collective bargaining, which is something we're going to get into, I think the owners are going to pick the big fight this time. I think they're going to pick the big fight over a salary cap, and I'm going to explain for the millionth time why salary caps don't do anything for fans. They only help owners. All they do is create more profit. They do not help you. And I'll explain what would help you, though, because there are things you could do in collective bargaining that would be good for fans, but nobody's going to be talking about it. And we'll explain all that a little bit later on. Let's start with the Cards. And, of course, they're starting the second half tomorrow night. They're going to be in Arizona. And Arizona's been a disappointing team this year for a lot of reasons, but I think a big part of that has been injuries. Lost Corbin Burns. Jordan Montgomery got hurt. Not that he had been performing all that well, but they've lost a lot of pitching over the course of the year. They've had a lot of position players go down with injuries. Corbin Carroll's been out for a while.
They almost lost Eugenio Suarez. He had the biggest injury scare of the All-Star game.
I know. He got smoked in the All-Star game. So they've had their share of that. They are not the team that a lot of people, including me, by the way, I coming into the year, I was a big fan of them. Great defensive team with some offensive upside and a lot of pitching. Well, the pitching all got hurt,
right?
Including their relievers too, right?
A little piece of it also has to be the fact that they play in probably the most unforgiving division in baseball.
Yeah, it's definitely the top four. The worst team is the worst team in baseball,
right?
But the other four are all good.
Yeah,
So there's some of that too, and they're not what expected, but I do think they're dangerous, and it's a good series. It's going to be a good series. Then you have Colorado. And we're not at the point of being dramatic where you have to sweep Colorado. But these 13 games coming out of the All-Star break will certainly determine the path at the trade deadline. So It's Arizona, it's Colorado, and then it's 4 against the Padres, which is the tough one, and then it's the Marlins. And I know the Marlins had their 9, 10, 11-game winning streak, but they're still 7 games under 500 even after that. So they're not a great team. They don't have much offense. They do have pitching. And they may even have a couple pitchers the Cardinals should be interested in if they could find their ways into the Alcantara conversation or maybe the Edward Cabrera. But it's not the hardest schedule, and it's going to be really important for the Cardinals to get on a stretch where they give the front office a reason to add.
And again, not to be overdramatic, but I do think if and I don't know that players think in these exact terms, but if even the general vibe in the Cardinals clubhouse is we'd like to put John Mozeliak in a position where he can be a buyer, or at least where he's a holder at the deadline.
Right.
I think probably sweeping Colorado does have to be on the agenda, or winning all 4 of those series. But I think if you want to put pressure on John Mozeliak to at least not sell and potentially buy, you probably have to get to 10 games over 500 by the deadline. That would be my thought. Again, I don't think players are going through and saying, well, if this game's a win and this game's a loss, right? The way you become a good baseball player and a good athlete is by just focusing on doing your job today. You don't do the things that we do. This is why, it's the biggest reason that I was a poor athlete, along with lack of athleticism, right? Like this is that our brains work a certain way. If you're a Major League Baseball player, you've trained your brain. Either it naturally works a different way or you've trained it to work a different way. But my thought would be probably 10 games over 500 would have to be the target, because if you get there in the next, what would that mean in 13 games? It would mean going like 11-4, 10 or 11 and that's too many. 10-3.
Well, right now you're 5 games over, so you have to be 5 games over.
Yeah. So they'd have to be 9-4, and if they did that, and you're 10 games over 500 at that point, I think that probably Mozeliak could at least get into a mind space where he's saying, all right, I feel really good about this being a wild card team. Whether you can chase down the Cubs and the Brewers in the division, who knows? And then it puts pressure on him not to trade away the Ryan Helsley's of the world.
I think, if they're 7, if they're where they are now, let's just say they, in 13 days they're where they are now. They won't sell. They'll hold because there's not that much value in waving any form of white flag when you're a game and a half out of a wild card spot, right?
What if they got a really, really good Helsley offer?
Then I'd have to know that I could replace him. I'd have to know that I could go get someone else to fill that spot at the same time. So
there's basically, within reason, within the realm of possibility, if the Cardinals were, let's say, still a game and a half out of the wild card and 6.5 out of the division, right where they are now, there's no reasonably feasible Helsley offer. Let's say a 20 or 30% over market value, but not 100% over, where you would say, all right, I guess we're just going to, that's just good enough that I got to let him go, and it'll be what it'll be.
I mean, you'd have to give me something that no team would for 2 months of a closer.
Right.
You'd have to give me, a top 100 prospect that's close to the big leagues. Otherwise, because from a team perspective, there's going to be value in just making the playoffs. You can market off of that in the offseason. Hey, we were a playoff team. We add another piece of that you can, and you combine that with a new voice in Chaim Bloom coming in. There's a lot to build off of that. Not to mention the money that comes from being in the postseason. So there's a revenue reason there. And if my return is going to be a future fourth outfielder or even a bullpen arm or something like that, or a prospect who's 18 and I may not see him for 5 years, it's going to be a hard sell. Not to mention the PR of it, right? I mean, your fan base is already edgy. we experience that edginess every day in interacting with people. You don't want to exaggerate that for a minimal return. It would have to be something where you just can't say no. And if it's that case, you can turn around and make another deal to get another reliever. Now, maybe it's not at the Helsley level, but you can go get somebody who's a reliever that's available. And in other words, do the thing we all joke about with Mo's language. We can just arbitrage. We can do a little of this and do a little of that and balance it all out. But if you look at the way I always liked the way Tony La Russa described how he viewed things. And that was, you got to just win the series. Win the series. That's your job. Every series comes up, your job is to win the series. So if you look at it that way, you've got these 13 games. You got 4 series. So if you look at the 4-gamer, count that as if you split that to me is a good series. If you split against a good team, that's fine. 2-2 against the Padres, totally fine. So then you take 2 each in the other ones. Well, that puts you at 8-5. So that would put you 8 games over 500. And that's, to me, kind of like your, I wouldn't say a minimum, but I think that's your standard expectation.
Right. And then if you sweep Colorado, you're there to the 9-4 that we talked about.
That's exactly right.
That third game against Colorado would kind of be the swing game. Can you get all the way there on the sweep? We did get a question on the stream already from Lauren Walter about the pitching situation for the road trip that's coming up and starting tomorrow. And the Cardinals announced their rotation. It's going to be Andre Palante Friday, Sonny Gray Saturday, and Miles Michaelis Sunday, which is kind of a nice answer after they took a lot of criticism for how Sonny ended up missing both of the Cubs series in the lead up to the All-Star break, because they're consciously choosing here to put Sonny Gray on Saturday and line him up to start the opener of that Padres series when they return home a week from tonight, which feels like it's probably the best case scenario.
It also means Fetty starts in Colorado.
Which
fine.
I don't think you're going to feel good about Fetty starting anywhere.
They're terrible, so it doesn't matter. Like, I get it was an altitude joke, but because the Rockies lineup is so terrible, it's not overly concerning when it comes to that.
The other thing is that then with that being the 5th game, because they're going to play without an off day until the 31st of July. Then they'll be off on trade deadline day, which is kind of nice for Mozeliak. He's going to get as many games as possible between now and the deadline, and then they're not going to be playing on the deadline. So 13 games in 13 days here coming out of the break, and the 5th day will be Fetty in Colorado. And I wonder if maybe they're already looking at, well, the 22nd is going to be a day we maybe make a bullpen transaction or two, and if we've got it in our minds, we're going to send one or two guys down and call one or two guys up. Yeah. Probably the 22nd is the day you process those transactions and have a couple of fresh arms available for the Fetty game in Colorado. And then if you don't use them, you got the day game in Colorado the next day, and you'll probably get a chance to use them then.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with all this. We're going to get into some of your questions, too, by the way. We got a bunch more things popping in, so if you want to throw something at us, we'll bring it in. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, just comment right where you're watching, and we can jump in and continue this conversation. In fact, we got a question we'll tease right now, a question about a potential replacement for Helsley if you were to trade him, an in-house one. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. Of course, we're here till 6 o'clock, and then Sports Up Line comes up after that. It's Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here on the Redbird Rush Hour. You had a solid retirement dream. Sell your home in a few years, bank the equity, downsize, and travel. But with an unpredictable economy and the future feeling a bit uncertain, You're wondering if that equity will still be there when you're ready. What if you could bank that equity right now? With Truehold, you can sell your home for its current value so you can access your equity today. You can bank the cash now and stay in the home you love with an easy standard lease. Truehold even covers property taxes, insurance, and repairs. And since Truehold hands over your equity in cash now, it's yours to do whatever you'd like. Don't let a shifting economy put your hard-earned equity at risk. Visit Truehold.com and receive their competitive offer on your home in just 48 hours based on its current value, not what's coming. Call 1-855-300-9993 or visit Truehold.com. The smarter, faster way to cash out on your home's value without moving. That's Truehold.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. Well, Hims can help. Through Hims.com, you can get a full range of treatment options for ED, including daily or as-needed meds through a 100% online process. It all starts with an online intake form. Get started at hims.com/joy, and from there, a medical provider licensed in your state will determine if ED treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is shipped to you for free. Find the ED treatment that fits your needs with options up to 95% less than the brand names. Millions of men experience ED, but Hims can help. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
Traffic from the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
Well, we still have a lot of slow traffic. Unfortunately, that's been the worst of it. But if you're headed home on westbound Highway 70, you've still got some slow traffic coming out of the city. And then after that, you've got, and that runs really out to about Lucas Hunt. It's still busy, 270 to the Blanchette and A to Z out in the Wentzville area. It looks like they cleared that, they cleared that crash, I think, southbound 61 at Dietrich. But traffic's still jammed more than midway back to Moscow Mills. Northbound Wentzville Parkway up into Highway W is slow, not jammed, so it's getting a little bit better, but still tough. Southbound 270 bogs down north of Olive, and it goes all the way down really in pockets to about Gravois. South and north 170 between Delmar and 64 is still pretty busy. Westbound 64 Science Center out to McCausland, McKnight to 270 slow, most of the way through the valley to the Boone Bridge, and again 364 out to Highway 70. Southbound 55 Arsenal Bates backed up. And then eastbound 44 and 64 both backed up from east of Jefferson onto the Poplar Street Bridge. Southbound 55 still a solid jam south of 143 down to 270. Westbound 70 jams midway between Route 4 and 270 onto westbound 270, still heavy through 159. I'm Roger Brand at the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
You're listening to the Redbird Rush Hour on 104.1 KMOX.
All right, Redbird Rush Hour. Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Matt Pauley back tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow night it'll be me and Matt and Bernie. And, of course, you got Nate for the 2 hours following this one with Sports Open Line. We'll get a little teaser on that in a little bit. We got tons of questions coming in. You guys feel free to chime in anywhere, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. That's the easiest ways for you. Just put your message right there where you're watching. Makes it super easy. We got a question before the break, Nate, from Matt. I'll put it up on the screen for those watching. Read it for everybody on the radio. It says, suppose we did trade Helsley. Is it crazy to think Graceffo would be a good option at closer? Short answer, yes. It would be crazy to think that he would get put into that role. Yes, that would be crazy. Down the road, never know. Down the road, I mean, he throws hard. You know, he could be a guy that develops into that. But right now, he would not be near the top of my list for internal candidates. The first one would be Maton if you didn't trade him too. Then you've got Leahy would be next in line, and probably Granillo would be in that mix as well. So it's not crazy to think down the road that a big right-hander who throws hard could move into that type of a role. I just would think he's 4th, 5th, 6th on the list for the short term.
Especially because that's not how they've been preparing him to pitch, right? He's been a starter up until, first
this year
he
hasn't
Beach,
started
and
yet.
then this year he's been primarily a reliever, but he's got 4 saves in his entire professional career, one of them in the major league level.
If they thought he was a potential closer for this year, he wouldn't be riding the bus back and forth to Memphis. The fact that he's one of the guys that goes up and down tells you he's not going to be in that mix. But again, not down the road, who knows? I mean, he's got the physical capability. if he can, further command his off-speed stuff and improve it, his fastball plays, at least the velocity plays if he throws it where he wants to. So, that's part of the complicating factor here is, if you're going to trade him, do you also feel like you need to trade Maton? Because you probably get something for Maton from a top team too. Everybody needs relief help, and he's having a great year, and he's a veteran who's been around. I mean, wasn't he with Cleveland last year in the postseason? Or was it Cleveland or was it the Mets? I think it's the Mets. But he's a guy that's been around the postseason a bunch of times too. So do you really want to go that route if you're a game and a half out of the playoffs? I wouldn't. And again, partly because, look, this team is not the 2006 team. It's not the 2011 team. You don't have an Albert. You don't have Yachty. You don't have those kind of guys leading the way. But if you're in, you have a shot. And I would agree with anyone who says, look, this rotation's not built for the postseason. Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Do you remember 2006? Do you remember who was pitching in the World Series? Anthony Reyes. Remember that? Remember, what's his name? Jeff Weaver. Remember that? Like they didn't have their dudes. Adam Wainwright was still in the bullpen. Chris Carpenter was hurt. They got by with guys that weren't very good in the regular season and really weren't major league starters much longer after that. So it can happen. Again, not the same circumstance. I know. Much better lineup in 2006. Much more power in the middle of it. Superstar Hall of Fame caliber players. I know. I'm just saying that if you can get in, you don't give that away unless it's a Godfather offer. And there are some teams that are interesting. I was looking at this a little bit last night, Nate. Teams that, if you look at their farm system, they have things that would match up with you. Because that's a big thing, too. It's not just contender versus the team trading a player. It's also, do they have the things that will fit you, and do they have them in excess where they can afford to part with them? So as an example, the Yankees would be a great fit. If they were looking at Helsley, if they were looking at maybe trying to pry a guy like Donovan away from you, whatever, they actually have some of the pieces that it would take. They have high-end, big power arms that are close to the big leagues. They've got 2 or 3 of them that are close, and they've got a lot of money spent on a rotation. So they're not that they can move 1 or 2 of those guys and still not be too much. Some other teams don't match up very well. Houston's a tough match. They have needs, but they don't have they don't really have the people that would make it worth your while across the board. They have a lot of what you have. Left-handed hitting outfielders, middle infielders, again, which is something that you have. So part of it is going to be, if you're going to make deals, again, who's into it and do they have what would make sense for you?
So do you look at, in a potential Helsley trade in particular, but I guess you could apply this to Maton just the same, do you look at the Yankees and the Dodgers being the most likely two-way street fits, not just that they would want Helsley, but that the Cardinals would want what they have?
Yeah. I mean, it's possible.
Because the other teams that you're going to get, like Philadelphia and Boston, are probably the other ones that people are going to throw out there.
I mean,
but again,
Boston needs pitching.
People are thinking more, when the average person throws this out, to your point, they're thinking more about, does that team need Helsley? Because they know that team's major league roster.
Right.
They don't necessarily know everybody's farm. Right. They might not even know the Cardinals farm system that well. They certainly don't know the Red Sox.
And that's the hard part
well.
is, like, the Cardinals, what you want to do, too, is you don't want to add more to what you already have. You don't want to add more at second base, third base, shortstop, unless you're talking about, like, a top 100 prospect who's 19, in which case you're years away. You're not really worried about the now, and that better be a super high-end player, right? But most of what the Cardinals need is they need arms. They need guys that are major league rep on the mound. That's their biggest need. And if you could add like a big right-handed power bat that plays really anywhere, that would be nice too. But again, you're not typically getting those things for 2 months of a reliever.
I will say I was thinking this a little bit when we were having a similar conversation yesterday, and I'm definitely thinking it now. It's ironic, I guess. It feels silly that we're having this conversation and talking about, look at those guys, kind of the quad A starting pitchers that the Dodgers have, or that the Yankees have, and the guys we could get our hands on. And what we're doing is lusting after Michael McGreevy, who's sitting there
some
waiting
of these guys
to start.
Are different, but yes,
right. They're
different,
different profiles, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm saying what we're doing is talking about, man, wouldn't it be great to have a guy who was at Memphis, who we could slot into Eric Fetty's spot and would have a realistic chance of pitching better than Fetty is?
Yep.
Like, why do we think that they would acquire that guy and immediately slot him into the rotation?
They might not. Yeah. And if you're thinking about doing this, you're thinking about next year.
Right.
right? If you're thinking about selling at the deadline, then you're thinking about 2026 more than 2025. And you're going to need, depending on how it goes, you can count on Liberatore if he's healthy next year. You're going to count on Sonny Gray. You're going to count on Andre Palante for now because he's in your rotation and he's still relatively young and cost controlled. So you have two spots. One of those is probably McGreevy. Do you want that other spot to be a young guy that you're one of the guys that we're talking about you could get, or do you need that to be someone better?
I think what I'm getting at is so much of this year we've heard the word runway, word runway.
Yeah.
And it's paid dividends to a great degree with Nolan Gorman already.
Yeah, and Burleson and a few others.
Burleson. And it still could with Jordan Walker. That kind of remains to be seen, but it's still preached about Jordan Walker. What has Michael McGreevy done to not deserve at least as much runway as any of those other guys?
Nothing. He just doesn't make enough money to push a more expensive player out. Right. I mean, it's just that's what it is. There's no other rational explanation for continuing with both Michaelis and Fedde in the rotation. I understand why you'd have to keep one because you don't have many options other than McGreevy. But yeah, they may be hurting their chances at the postseason by not making that adjustment. But we'll see. If those guys pitch well over the next couple of weeks, then maybe we have a different view. But I don't at the moment.
That's a good point that you make, though, as well. If they do hold even, which I would consider hold as similar to buying to them at the deadline in the sense that it's just not selling. If they hold at the deadline, I think it becomes very hard to hide behind, well, we got to keep Fedde in there because he's making too much money.
No.
Right? If you're not playing for the future, if you're going to hold on to your bullpen to try to make the playoffs this year, then you should also be willing to, if necessary, release a guy who's making a little more money in order to make room for McGreevy if you think there's any realistic chance he's an upgrade.
All right, Redbird Rush Hour, Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here till 6 o'clock. We come back. We got our peak performer for the day, a little bit. We got more of your questions, too, by the way, and a couple of good ones. We'll throw your questions out there when we come back here on KMOX.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions, like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hey, this is Charlie Brennan. Have you noticed loose bricks or missing mortar around your house? On the walls, the patios, the walkways, the porch, or the chimneys? If so, you need to call Morelli Tuck Pointing. 314-645-1387. You might need one of two things. Solid tuck pointing, the removal of old mortar with the replacement of new mortar throughout an entire wall or chimney, or maybe just spot tuck pointing. Spot tuck pointing involves the tuck pointing of a particular wall, a chimney, or other masonry surface in an area where it's needed the most. One example might be settlement cracks, usually found above or below windows or doorways. 314-645-1387. Call the company that the Brennans have called when we've needed tuck pointing. Morelli Tuck Pointing, the masonry specialists. Winner of the Angie's List Super Service Award every year since 2005. 314-645-1387, MorelliTuckPointing.com.
Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort, offering small ship experiences with a shore excursion included in every port and programs designed for cultural enrichment. Discover more at Viking.com. That's Viking.com.
It is 5:31. We've got some rain in the region. It's 82 degrees downtown at the Arch. The latest economic picture shows more increases in the prices of goods and services, but a St. Louis Fed economist tells us that consumers are making interesting choices about what they'll spend money on.
People are still spending on necessities. However, Chuck Gaskin with the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis says they seem to be cutting back on discretionary items.
There's a notable exception, which is high-end premium products continue to sell pretty well. So if you look at like what we're hearing from auto dealers, dealers. People are paying cash for nice cars are still going out and buying those cars. The New York Fed reported in their report that a retailer said that jewelry sales are still strong, denim sales are still strong. I think it was the Richmond Fed that noted that luxury hotel chains were still seeing their sales quite strong.
Gaskin says retirees seem to be in a better financial position and continue to spend, while the median household is definitely pulling back. Megan Lynch, KMOX News.
So you get a dose of Narcan out of one of the new vending machines installed by St. Louis County. Now, how can you be sure that the person in front of you is actually ODing? You don't have to be sure, actually.
Part of the great thing about this medication is that it has no side effects, and the only thing that it's going to respond to is an opioid overdose.
Jenny Armbruster with Prevent Ed says it's a nasal spray, so it's easy to give. She thinks it's great the county is adding vending machines. They've already made Narcan available at county clinics and at library branches. Are you thinking of driving to Kansas City for some FIFA World Cup action next year? Single game tickets are now on sale. Stam Stevie has the details.
And if you're wanting to go to a game, you should start saving your money last year. But don't let the prices scare you away. The tickets that went on sale yesterday also include luxury hospitality packages, not just tickets into the game. Group stage matches range from $1,200 to $3,000 per person. The cheapest package, the club, includes access to the shared lounge space, buffet dining and drinks, a ticket to the game, a gift, and parking. The pavilion package comes with similar amenities, just fancier, $2,000 or more. The business seat starts at $2,800 per person, the private suite starting at $10,000. Standard tickets go on sale later this year.
Scattered storms tonight and a low 72 for Friday. We've got some sun and a high of 85. Right now, we've got some rain in the region. It's 82 degrees downtown at the Arch. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
1 in 4 people surveyed by Bankrate.com say they're literally losing sleep because of worries that they may have not saved enough to retire. If you're ready to get serious about planning for your financial future, you could start by listening to the All Financial Hour with host Steve All of the All Financial Group.
What are your wishes, hopes, and dreams? What's retirement look like for you? Because everybody, that picture is different. If you want assistance, we can also help you at that point.
Saturday mornings at 10 or Sunday evenings at 6, right here on KMOX.
The Siteman Cancer Center spotlight how an innovative immunotherapy is showing promise against aggressive T-cell cancers. Joining us is Dr. John DiPersio.
Until very recently, until this paper and a few other groups in the world have sort of developed approaches for T-cell malignancies, there was no hope for patients who relapsed. There were no effective therapies. This is a way of treating these patients that would normally have no other recourse.
For more information, visit siteman.wustl.edu.
Paul's new drone startup just lost its most genius computer scientist.
We just lost our best genius to some new genius who's got a genius new idea. I'm going to have to find a new genius, or 2 half geniuses, and fast.
He needs a computer scientist that can keep his startup from falling down.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
I'm Ultima Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Every time one of my children started driving, it was terrifying. Thousands of accidents happen across the country. We see it every day. If you've been injured in a car accident, call us.
Dial #law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
At California Psychics, we know that sometimes you can wake up thinking,
I don't know if I'm in the right career, or the right relationship.
But whatever your life dilemma, at California Psychics, we'll give you the guidance you need to feel certain about your life choices. And because we only connect you with the very best, we guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. California Psychics. Call 1-800-PREDICT today and get 20 minutes for just $20.
Career changers, including veterans and active duty service members. Your transition starts here. Go from GI to IT in a matter of months. Become a certified cyber warrior with training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, offering IT pros great opportunities and a rewarding lifestyle while protecting our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. Deploy your career in IT today at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner.
VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
You're listening to the Redbird Rush Hour on 104.1 KMOX.
All right, Redbird Rush Hour. Here on KMOX, you got Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here till the top. Nate's got Sports Open Line coming your way after the 6 o'clock news. Right now, it's time for the Game Day Men's Health Peak Performer. Get back to the top of your game with Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com. And with no games being played here for a while, and we're going to have another one of these shows tomorrow, so I can pick the Peak Performer for tomorrow night's game on tomorrow's show. I wanted to pick out another prospect who is worthy of our attention, who's actually put himself back on the map. Outfielder Joshua Baez was a second-round pick in 2021, and before this year, he really struggled. He had a hard time with strikeouts. He had a hard time, with just consistency. He's a power guy. That's considered, power is considered his best tool, or one of his best tools, and he really has had a hard time staying healthy, and his career high in home runs before this year was 11. Well, he's got 11 now this season. He's really turned up the power. He's hitting a lot of doubles. He's got 34 steals to go along with, 30-plus extra base hits in basically half a season between High A Peoria and Double A Springfield's got an 891 OPS at Springfield since going there. So, again, just an interesting dude who for a while seemed like he had fallen off the radar, but now, he's 6'3", 220. He's a plus runner with a plus arm and plus power. And doesn't mean he's a regular, doesn't mean he's their future star, but he's a factor. And as we talked about, Nate, he's a right-handed hitter, which is something they don't have a lot of in their system anywhere near the big leagues. But his development might be an important one, where he can be somebody that factors in, maybe even if he's just a power-hitting fourth outfielder, would be a nice guy to have on your bench.
You wonder how that even happens, right? It feels like no team can have enough left-handed hitters, and then after a while, you look around and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Overcorrected.
Yeah, and again, a lot of teams will favor drafting left-handers because more pitchers are right-handed.
Right.
And, that just gives you the odds of playing it well. Unfortunately, their problem is that all of their left-handed batters play the same positions. Like right now, all three of your outfielders are left-handed. It wouldn't be the case if Walker was healthy. But Walker also hasn't hit. And, that's a real concern going into next year. You almost have to put him into a position next year where he has to earn a job rather than just be set up with one. And I mean even earn a job on the roster. And I'll make a comp. I don't want to get too deep into it because we don't have much time. We're going to go to traffic here in a second. But I'll make a comp very briefly that's not exactly the same, but similar. I would say you got to treat Jordan Walker next year like Detroit treated Spencer Torkelson coming into spring training this year. He had to win the job. He was terrible last year. He got sent down to the minors. He never came back. He was awful, and they told him, you got to win a job. You have to earn a spot on the and by the way, that's a guy that was the first pick in the draft. He was at one point the number one prospect in baseball.
And the reason he was the first pick in particular was not just his ceiling, but also that his floor was supposed to be high that he was essentially...
Exactly right.
It was essentially impossible that he could fail.
Right. And in 2023, he had a 30-homer season. And in 2024, he spent most of the time in the minors because he was terrible. So if you can do that to a guy that was 1-1 and the number one overall prospect at one point, you can do that with Jordan Walker if that's the case. So we'll obviously bring that back up another time. Joshua Baez, though, is our peak performer for the day. Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here. We're going to check traffic real quick. When we come back after the traffic, we're going to zoom out a little bit, take more of your questions, get a little bigger picture.
Traffic from the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
Well, we've got jam traffic in Illinois and headed into Illinois. If you're headed into Illinois right now, they were clearing a crash a moment ago eastbound at the Missouri end of the Poplar Street Bridge. 64 is backed up to Union Station, but 44 is jammed east of Grand all the way to the bridge. And then on the Illinois side, you still have these jams. Southbound 55 midway between 143 down to 270. Westbound 70 midway between Route 4 and 270. But the jam continues on westbound 270 up to 159 because of a crash there. So really tough going for Illinois drivers. On the Missouri side, it's a little slow at the city limits.
minutes on westbound 70, Bryan Road through Lake St. Louis and around 61, kind of heavy. Southbound 270, south of Olive, down through Manchester, Doherty Ferry, Big Bend down to Gravois, slow stuff. 170 busy right around the Parkway, westbound 64 Science Center through Bellevue, McKnight out to 270, a couple of slowdowns, and 364 out to 70 is pretty busy. 61 northbound has cleared out, southbound 55 is cleared out. I'm Roger Brand at the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
All right, we pick back up on the Redbird Rush Hour. Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here, taking up to the top of the hour. Nate, what do you got coming up tonight on Sports Open Line?
We're going to be talking to Ben Hochman of the Post-Dispatch on the Cardinals in general. Sam Dykstra will visit with us, kind of wrap up. I feel like we've talked to basically every MLB draft expert, one a night as we go through the week. That's going to kind of wrap up the MLB draft conversation, especially now with the news that Liam Doyle and supposedly Ryan Mitchell have signed their contracts. A kind of a fitting day to sort of put a bow on that and move forward with it. Dan Reardon will be back to talk about the first round of the Open Championship. Also going to talk some Mizzou football because Eli Drinkwitz and the Tigers had their SEC media days this morning, and Drinkwitz made headlines as he always does.
Yeah, I like Drink. Sometimes he says stuff and you're like, don't agree, but I like him. I like his energy. He's doing a great job. So keep doing it.
He would be in another life a very good talk radio host.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. He's good at this kind of stuff. Let's get a few questions in here, and then we'll zoom out and go a little bit bigger. A few questions just about like where things are at the moment. Ken chimes in on the text line coming up on YouTube and says, you don't have the starting pitching to make a playoff run without adding a starter. I'd be willing to trade relievers and Newt Bar. And being realistic, nobody is going to want Fetty. Yeah, that at this point, that's true. I mean, if you were to put him on waivers, he would clear waivers. Nobody's claiming the money. But somebody probably would, sign him, send him to AAA to get a couple starts in, and then see if he could help them out if they could fix him. But yeah, you're right. Nobody's giving you anything for him at this point. If you're trading relievers, I don't know that I fully understand we don't think we can win the World Series, so we should just kick it all down the road and just forget about even trying to make the postseason.
I do.
I don't, because here's why I don't. Number one, because we've seen teams that don't, quote unquote, don't have the pitching to make a World Series run win the World Series. We've seen it. We saw it happen here. Again, not the exact same situation, but you tell me that 2006 Jeff Suppan, Anthony Reyes, and Jeff Weaver strikes you as a team that's going to be winning the World Series.
Again, you acknowledge the easiest hole there. So let me put it this way. If the 2025 Cardinals, with, let's say, their exact current roster, won the World Series, they would be the least talented roster to win the World Series since blank.
Great question. I don't know.
I mean, a long time. I'm not sure one springs to mind. Because, again, you would say that their starting rotation was probably worse than, even if you said they were worse than the 2006 team, the lineup is nowhere near. Right?
Well, no. The main guys are nowhere near. There's no Albert. But nobody else on that team was special offensively. They had 3 above-average hitters that year. Because we can't forget that year, Yadier Molina was 50% below average as a hitter.
But what is Albert worth in that? I mean, Albert's got to be worth 3 above-average hitters in and of himself, right?
Yeah, but you can pitch around that guy. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. And I haven't looked this up. I'm going to have to maybe do this. I don't know that their runs per game were any different than your runs per game on this team. I'd have to look it up and be real. And again, I don't think this team can either. I want to be very clear. I would say you're probably going out in the first round, but probably doesn't mean anything when I can look at a season where Carpenter was hurt in the postseason. He didn't pitch. Jason Marquis was a losing pitcher with a 6.02 ERA in 33 starts. Jeff Suppan was a 4.12. Anthony Reyes was a 5.06. Jeff Weaver was a 5.18. They were all Miles Michaelis. And they won the World Series. Their lineup wasn't that much better than this lineup. They didn't have anybody in that rotation in the postseason that was even as good as Sonny Gray. Maybe not even as good as Gray or Liberatore. And we watched that team win the World Series. Now, again, it's also Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan. And it was a better lineup in the middle. So I think Jim Edmonds is a better player than what his numbers said that year because he was hurt a lot of that year. I think Scott Rowland's a better player than what his numbers said in that year. But again, everybody else was below average in the regular season. Aaron Miles below average. David Eckstein below average. So Taguchi below average. Juan Encarnacion below average. Like, these are the guys that rounded out the lineup. And Yachty was 50% below average offensively, but obviously great defender. So I do understand what the likelihood is. I wouldn't say they're going to do it. But I also wouldn't punt on 2 months of competitive baseball. You think the seats are empty now. What are they going to look like if you throw up the white flag?
That's the strongest card.
And you start to go into the crapper by mid-August, and now nobody's coming to any games for 6 weeks.
That's the strongest counter-argument. But
and
again,
what are you getting? That's the other thing.
Everything about this season has, from before the season started, has been oriented around how can we reposition this franchise such that it cannot be a team perennially hoping for a wild card or to win the weakest division in baseball and get bounced immediately in the playoffs.
Yeah, and if you told me you're going to get a potential impact player for 2 months of a reliever, okay, maybe then, but you're not going to. Like, it just happens so rarely.
I think you probably could, but the caveat is what we talked about yesterday, which is, are you going to get an impact player who is enough of a step up from the level of impact player you could get with a comp pick for the qualifying offer to Helsley
That's exactly
in the offseason?
the point. Right.
And that's the real question. If
because
Helsley
that
were
pick
not
is
qualifying,
probably a top 50 pick.
Right. It's essentially a like early second round, mid-second round pick.
Yeah, it's somewhere between the first and the second round.
Yeah.
And so is the player you're going to get, and now the player you're going to get in a deal may be closer to the big leagues.
Yes.
But is it unless there's a team out there that's going to get silly, and I don't know who that is, I just don't think you're going to get enough that says we're going to kiss away the money for attendance if we go into the crapper. The potential cash payoffs for even if you have just 3 playoff games, just 3 is still some money. And then forget the marketing about it. And when you're going into the offseason trying to sell season tickets, trying to convince people you're on the right track, got a new guy coming in. Hey, we made the playoffs. We're not that far away. Like,
but what is the percentage
what
chance
are you getting
right now
to return that kicks all of that out of the way?
But if nothing changes, what's the percentage chance right now that the Cardinals host a single playoff game? Is it even 20%?
No, it's probably 10.
Yeah,
maybe.
And then if we assume that's the case,
you're going to have to win a wild card round to do. Well, I don't know. I guess you're not going to get the top wild card spot, so I guess it would be more than that. It would be 10. It would be low.
Yeah. So if we assume then that they don't, and that they go out in the first round, whatever that first round is for them, and they don't play a home game, I don't think that has now moved the needle in terms of where the fan base is going into next year, compared to where they were going into this year. That I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy to have competitive baseball for the next 2 months. Right. It's about the delta. We're comparing all this against the delta between the player that you acquire for Helsley now and the player that you could get with that comp.
Here's how I would put it. If somebody makes you the offer that the Yankees made the Cubs, that the Cubs made the Yankees in 2015 to get Aroldis Chapman, which was one of the top prospects in baseball, which was Gleyber Torres, if you get that offer, take it. If you get that offer, take it. You're just not going to. You don't make this deal for a B-level prospect. You don't make this deal for a guy that's not in the top 100 or somebody that's not going to be a guy you can plug into a short-term job, whether it's a rotation spot, a bullpen spot, or whatever. I'm not saying there's no deal, just saying it's unlikely you will get enough that's going to be better than the comp pick and make it worth diminishing your chances significantly because you do not have another in-house closer.
And I don't think there's an analog for, even if it would be advisable, which it probably wouldn't be, but I don't think there's an analog for the 2016 Chicago Cubs in this year, in the sense that you need a team that is both that good in general, has that big a hole at closer, and is that damn desperate to win the World Series and do whatever they can to maximize those chances. Anything else be damned.
Who right now is 100-year desperate?
Right, nobody.
not a single
certainly
one.
Not the Los Angeles Dodgers, and certainly not the New York Yankees.
No. That's Nate Gatter. I'm Kevin Wheeler. Stick around. We'll wrap up the Redbird Rush Hour next year on KMOX.
Hospital Sisters Health System isn't just in your community. We're part of it. Expert care and genuine support backed by a network that puts your health first. HSHS, connected to our community, committed to your health. Visit hshs.org/caring.
Hey, it's Jeff Sachs at Sachs Financial, retiresafestl.com. Have you ever wondered what it's like to work with a financial advisor? Are you in your 50s or early 60s and really haven't talked to anybody about how you retire? Give me a call today. Check out our website, retiresafestl.com.
Summer is here. Time to enjoy baseball, barbecues, and the shade of your trees. When it comes to tree care, call the certified arborist at Gamma Tree Experts. Hi, I'm Tim Gamma. Protect your valuable trees from storm damage or devastating insects such as the emerald ash borer. Knowledge and quality are hallmarks of our reputation. For pruning, spraying, fertilization, or removals, call Gamma Tree Experts today at 314-725-6159 or visit us at gammatree.com. Your trees deserve the best care.
Traffic from the michaelsflooringoutlet.com Traffic Center.
Well, they cleared the crash on westbound 270 at 159. Traffic still bogged down, backed into the 3Is. Southbound 55 jams midway down from 143 to that point, and westbound 70 jams midway from Route 4 over to 270 still. So it's still tough, and it's tough getting across the Poplar. We had that crash eastbound at the Missouri end of the bridge. Lane blockage there. It's jammed at Union Station, maybe Tucker 11th Street. Eastbound 44 is jammed east of Grand all the way up to the bridge right now. If you're on westbound Highway 64, a little busy around the city limits. There's a couple of slow spots between Lindbergh and Ballas, and from 364 out to 70 is crowded. South 270, just 44 down to Gravois, the only slowdown for you there right now. I'm Roger Brand at the michaelsflooringoutlet.com Traffic Center.
This is the Redbird Rush Hour on 104.1 KMOX.
All right, just a few minutes left on the Redbird Rush Hour. Nate Gatter, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Nate's got Sports Open Line coming up for you after the 6 o'clock news. Just fascinating stuff with the Cardinals. And here's one thing, like bigger picture. If we want to, zoom to the, do the cliche 10,000-foot view. This whole in-between area is what they need to get out of. They've been stuck on the fence for several years. Like, you're always in a spot where you're not sure. Are you a buyer or a seller? Are you a contender or are you not a contender? Do you know who your lineup should be? How are you going to, there's always been this kind of we got to find this out. We got to find that. What we got to do is come up with some answers.
And
right?
I think that's why my instinct is to just say, you know what, let's sell. Because I know I'm not in, and I know it's not going to happen that the Cardinals are buyers. Right, I know.
Well, if they do,
it would
be
a little bit
marginal,
of both.
right? It would be marginal, though. They're not going to buy big,
right?
Yeah.
So, and in that sense, it's still going to be somewhere around sitting on the fence. They'll be just barely over the fence, one side or the other. There's no way they're going all the way to the extreme on buying. So, if the idea is there's something good at least in picking a direction, whether that direction is precisely the right thing at the right moment or not, there's something to be said for just getting in the car and starting to drive. I'd at least rather sell than buy if I had to pick one extreme or the other.
If you had to pick, yes. But I'll be honest with you. If I had to pick, if you said I might choose to buy, but not buy rentals. You know what I mean? I'd be looking to get pieces, but that's the hard part. Those are the impossible things to get. Teams don't want to trade players that they have under control unless their return is phenomenal.
Right. It'd be great to get Mitch Keller, but I don't think that's
they're not going
happening.
to trade him in the division either.
Right.
The Pirates aren't doing you any favors, right? You're going to have to look outside. And it's, again, it's not impossible. The bigger deals that we're talking about are generally more off-season type deals where you're going to say, okay, hey, what's that price for Sandy Alcantara again? Or Edward Cabrera or any of those types of players. Those are not typically trade deadline. Now, again, I'm not saying Alcantara won't get moved. I'm saying for the Cardinals, that's probably not an in-season move. That's more of what does Heim think?
Yeah.
And if he's making the calls in the offseason, that's definitely more of that. One of the problems, too, if you're a buyer, though, there just aren't many buyers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there aren't many sellers, true, really good sellers.
But it's, a function of extending the wild card. The intended consequence of that was more fan bases engaged, more opportunities to keep people in the playoff race to the end. The downside has been fewer sellers to make these deadline deals. There's a comment from Ken on the YouTube stream. He said, which is something we touched on briefly yesterday, what about a deal that includes Helsley and Nootbaar? And, how many teams out there needing relief pitch and outfield help? I do think that's where, if they were going to sell, I would love to see them try to find the right partner there, where maybe you can consolidate those guys into, if it was both of those guys go to the Dodgers, and now you can get a top 100 caliber prospect. We've talked about some of the River Ryan and Emmett Sheehan and some of their.
He's been hurt, but they got a few guys.
There are guys who are kind of, the starting pitchers who are pushing MLB ready or are MLB ready. I think that's where I would go. Can you get enough value between two of them together, packaging Helsley and Nootbaar, that now you can justify getting an A or A- list prospect rather than getting 2 or 3 B- list
How does
guys?
that track? And I know we only have 20 seconds, but the balance is, how does that track with trading Nootbaar separately, getting the comp pick for Helsley, and how does that compensation look separate? Like it's way more complex than when I make my deals on MLB The Show, which is going to happen here in a little bit. All right, but have a good show. It was fun working with you the last couple days. Have a great Sports Open Line tonight. We'll talk to you soon. I don't know when, but we'll talk to you soon. That's
Sometime.
Nate Gatter. Sports Open Line is coming up next on KMOX.
Hey, it's Debbie Monterey, and between now and the end of the summer, chances are that you or someone you know is in the market to buy or sell a home. And like me, you probably know a few realtors. Well, yeah, I know several as well, but when someone I know needs to sell their home, I always recommend Glory.